Borrow versus bootstrap. So what do you do? Well, I've kind of already told you. If you're going to borrow, right, make sure that the person that you're borrowing from understands that they're only getting their principal back and they're getting a return, right? But here's the problem about borrowing too early, okay? If you have an idea, you're a startup and you're putting all these things together, right? A lot of times you do not have what is called proof of concept, okay? And you do not have what is called WTP, which is a willingness to pay, okay? Now what happens is once you create something, right, like whether it's a product or service, and when someone pays you, right, willingness to pay, they pay you, now you have proof of concept because you came up with an idea, you created it, whether it was a product or service, and you took it to market and somebody actually paid you for it, okay? That's a willingness to pay, and you've just created a proof of concept, which gives you some leverage to actually go out and start borrowing money. Now, if you're a small business, a small startup, chances are the people that you're going to borrow from first are going to be people you know, okay? But the thing is, you have to caution them that just because people are willing to pay you for something, right, does not necessarily mean that your company will be a success, okay? It may not necessarily be a success. The problem that I see most of the time is people borrow way too soon, okay? They borrow money way too soon. They don't have proof of concept. They just have an idea. You know what I mean? They have an idea. They feel like they can make a bunch of money from it. But what ends up happening is they go out and they raise funds from personal friends. They borrow from mama. They borrow from daddy. They borrow from uncle. They borrow from friend. They borrow from sister. They borrow from all these different people and then end up losing their damn money. And why? Because they have not had not only a proof of concept or someone willing to pay them for their product or service, but they don't necessarily have a track history of people willing to pay them for their product or service. So before you borrow, I recommend that you bootstrap. And what is bootstrapping? Well, by definition, or loosely, just to give it to you loosely, in general, bootstrapping is basically come out of your own pocket to start a business, a startup, to create a product or service. And it's also getting people investing their time. They believe in your mission and your vision, which, by the way, if you don't have a mission or a vision and you can't show a vision to the people in whom you're trying to ask for their help, then no one's going to follow you. But if you have a mission and a vision and people start following you, then offering them a very small piece of equity in the company that you are creating, will actually help you save on the most expensive costs which actually burns through your cash more than anything. That's human labor. Okay. That's labor. So bootstrapping is coming out of your own pocket and building your organization with people that are of like mind that will actually help you do what it is you say you want to do. But you got to give them something, right? Remember, as I've shared with you before, a lot of companies have offered even secretaries a very small stake in the company. I think, what they say, Facebook or some of these other companies, these tech companies, some of their secretaries are multimillionaires because they gave their time and their energy and their effort, their sweat equity during a time when there was absolutely no money, okay? But they gave it freely and it paid off. So, suffix all that to say, do you borrow or do you bootstrap? Here is my recommendation to you, okay? Always bootstrap first. Once you get proof of concept, which is a willingness to pay a WTP, a willingness to pay. In other words, customers are willing to pay you for your product or service over a period of time, and only you can determine what that period of time is. Then you start thinking about taking on partners or limited partners or silent partners. But when you take them on, make it clear in contracts that we are giving you not only your principal back. Say, for example, a principal is if they lend you $100,000, the principal is $100,000. Okay, they lend you $100,000, the principal is $100,000, and we're going to give you in a set period of time. Not only we're going to give you your principal back, but we're also going to give you a payout, which would be your principal plus interest. Or you might offer them once after a period of time, start paying them on a monthly basis, offering them some kind of dividend or some kind of interest on their money as you are going along. Now, I got to say to you, it is very important not to borrow too soon. Bootstrap as long as you can. Try to generate as much revenue as you can, because you might discover that you don't need to get a loan. Sometimes getting a loan really works out for some people. If you've heard of Worldwide Technologies, on average they do between $7 to $9.5 billion a year. They are the largest African-American owned company in this country. Worldwide Technologies, David Stewart, was a founder, and this company started back in I think the 80s, right? But billionaire, you got people like Robert F. Smith, you got David Stewart, you have all these different people. But let me tell you about David Stewart. David Stewart actually borrowed $100,000 to start his company, Worldwide Technologies, and guess what? It didn't even go well for him, because I remember seeing an interview where he said that, hey, as I was walking out and it was lunchtime, my car got repossessed, but I had to tell all of the employees that, they just picking my car up for service, right? So make sure that before you decide to borrow, especially if you're hitting up friends, mama, daddy, papa, sister, uncle, whatever, make sure that you have proof of concept. In other words, your product or service can sell and does sell, and you have willingness to pay. You have done your market research, and there are people out there willing to pay you, but not only willing to pay you, but they are paying you. So you have something, or at least some kind of leverage when you're going into a negotiation to talk about the potential growth of your company if you decide to borrow. Now, I'm not going to get too deep like I did a little bit on private equity, which that was a very general illustration of how private equity works. But as far as Series A, Series B funding, all the different ways that technology companies get funded, you don't need all that, okay? If you are an entrepreneur doing your own thing, you just have to know what it is that you're doing and what value you're creating and who your target audience is and whether or not you can achieve proof of concept and whether or not they're willing to pay. All right, so that said, I'm AJ, your host of the Startup Junkie. Be sure to check out our show every Monday and Wednesday right here on this social platform or any other social platform, because we do syndicate. And be sure to check out the podcast, the Startup Junkie live podcast on iTunes, Spotify, as well as TuneIn. And until next time, remember that, it really doesn't take a lot to make your dream come true, okay? It really doesn't. What it really takes, it takes a belief, it takes a mission, it takes a vision, and it takes hard work. Until next time, everyone, take care, y'all.